Hello guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for my rational perspective on Red Bull Salzburg 1, Chelsea 2. Chelsea qualify for the last 16 of the Champions League with one game to spare, like we did last year. Top place could be guaranteed tonight, dependent on the result in the other game between Milan and Dynamo Zagreb. We'll see on that front, but that was the big assignment tonight, and Chelsea have done it. It was a little bit stressful in the final minutes. Chelsea again having to cling on to a lead with 6 minutes added on and a few stressful moments. But we got there in the end, and I think the performance absolutely deserved to win. I think Chelsea deserved a larger lead than they actually had in the game. But there were a lot of positives tonight. I think they were, and mainly as well. You go away in Europe. I think there would have been questions asked of Graham Potter after 2 games without a win. Again, just the feeling, the mood around Chelsea kind of going down a little bit, and seeing the way people have reacted to recent performances. But tonight, I think you have to be optimistic about what we saw. I think attacking wise, I think we saw a lot of creativity. Ironic to me that Chelsea, I think, created a lot of great opportunities tonight in several ways. I think in both halves we did. I think our finishing could have been better in the first half. I think it was quite poor in the second. And actually, the 2 goals that win us the game were 2 inspirational moments. They were 2 brilliant finishes, particularly the one from Kai Havertz, who on this channel I've been critical of. I don't think that has been unfair. But tonight he stepped up and he gave the team a moment of inspiration that won them the game that he absolutely needed, I think, for him and, of course, for Chelsea to get us back to winning ways. The team news, as was expected, or at least, we're coming used to it with Graham Potter, that there are surprises, and there are a lot of times you're looking at a team and you're wondering what the hell is the formation. I think this was the most drastic of all of them, where I've genuinely looked at the team and been quite confused. At least it took me a little while to think, who's going to be the wing backs? Is it a 3 at the back? Is it a 4 at the back? What is the configuration further up the field? So again, we had 4 changes, which I think was the same number of changes we had at the weekend against Manchester United. Chalobah, Thiago Silva and Cucurella as the back 3 in front of Kepa. Then we had Pulisic at right wing back. Jorginho, Kovacic and Gallagher were kind of a midfield 3. Sterling at left wing back. And then Havertz and Aubameyang were kind of a front 2. It was hard at times. I think in the first 20 minutes, it's not only the fact that when you're away from home in Europe, it is kind of difficult. You have to settle. I think you have to, especially against a team like Salzburg, who I think 7 of their first 11 tonight were under 21, which is just, it shows the youth and the talent, the young talent in this squad to be at this stage and compete with teams like Chelsea. It shows quite impressive, I think, coach side as well. We knew there was going to be a bit of a barrage, and I think you always have to get through that. And it doesn't sound that tactical. It sounds like a bit of a cliche, but I do think in a lot of away games, home and domestic and in European football, you have to kind of earn the right to play. And I think that's what Chelsea did in the first 20 to 30 minutes. And then we get a stunning goal from Mateo Kovacic to really set the performance off. Because until then, Chelsea hadn't looked that cohesive, I think, in terms of getting through RB Salzburg's press, which was quite good. It seemed to be quite disconnected. We were giving the ball away a lot, and they were even winning the ball back high up in our sort of defensive. So it was hard sometimes to see how Chelsea was this sort of big experiment from Graham Potter, which kind of at times looked like a 3-3-4. I mean, he really went for it. And I know some people were complaining over the weekend, not only about the attacking play, but just how boring maybe the team was. I don't think you could be bored tonight by that performance and also that starting 11. Graham Potter went for it. It was always going to be a risk, and I think that the equalizer, which we'll get to, kind of showed the risk in that. But I think he was rewarded by the performance. I think he really was, and we had some good performances there, which hopefully can lead on to better ones in the coming weeks before the World Cup. So Kovacic, he only scores stunners. He has no respect for XG. I think that his last goal came against Liverpool, that stunning volley, didn't it? He loves scoring the worldie. And it's great to see, an instinctive finish from the edge of the box from a number 8. We haven't had much of that at Chelsea, so I always like seeing an attacking midfielder or a central midfielder score a goal from the edge of the box for Chelsea for quite obvious reasons, particularly when you're wearing that number. And then Chelsea just started to click. I think the way we got through Salzburg's press in that first half was really, really impressive. Not only Kepa's influence, which has been steadily increasing in on sort of our build-up since he's come back into the team, but I felt the way the 2 wide centre-backs, Cucurella and Trevor Chalobah, I think were able to progress the ball. Silva was Thiago Silva. He was just mopping up and just reading the game so well throughout the night, and was in the wars a little bit as the game went on. I hope he's okay for the weekend. But the way they were able either to find the 2 wing-backs in Sterling and Pulisic, who at times did switch flanks, or look into central midfield with Jorginho, Kovacic, Gallagher dropping back. And listen, I think the Aubameyang chance, that would have been a truly wonderful piece of play. And it's such a shame that Aubameyang did not have his shooting boots on tonight, because that was such a perfect demonstration, like almost sort of you could give it to like a workshop of coaching, like a manual of how to beat a press. I mean, there was so much of that in the first half, and just a nice 1-2 touch play. And there were moments when Havertz and Sterling switched, so Sterling went more towards Aubameyang, Havertz came out wide, and I think that helped both of those players, to be honest. Coleman in goal, and I think he had made some big saves in the first game as well, was in fine form tonight. He really was, and that kept the score down. He made some really good saves. So Chelsea were a little bit unfortunate in that, and the keeper did have a worldie. But at 1-0, you're kind of going into half-time going, we've seen such great play, but there's always that fear, isn't there, particularly from away from home, particularly with this Chelsea side who have shown a tendency to concede goals out of nothing. It was one of those moments, the goal that's conceded, Okafor, who scored the goal at Stamford Bridge to equalise to make it 1-1. This time he was the provider for Adama on the break, and it was a brilliant ball in, a brilliant curled ball round the Chelsea defence. But it was one moment where it was a very sort of helter-skelter game, back and forth as you expect, high energy. And it was one moment where Thiago Silva, who'd been going up to the halfway line and winning a lot of interceptions to keep Chelsea on the front foot, it was one of those where he did not win it. And we just saw there the lack of wing-backs as well, the lack of defensive sort of wing-backs. I think Pulisic was the closest there. Perfect ball in, perfect finish too. Kepa obviously can do nothing about it, and the runs are perfect. And from that moment, I think Chelsea maybe drifted a little bit, or there was a sense that maybe you had Benjamin Sesko coming on who forced Kepa into a good save. And can this game turn in another direction? Can Chelsea's sort of whole good performance that they've been building up to this point really deteriorate? I like the fact that we kept going. It was just the execution at times. And I sort of got shown up on Twitter because I tweeted, Kai Havertz, I think, got into some really good positions. And he just tapped the ball towards goal. And I just thought he had a good header in the first half too that he should have scored. And I was just sitting there going, it just, the lack of execution from Havertz at times for the majority of the season so far has been really frustrating. Typically, he scores a goal that he mainly scores for Germany. It was quite similar to the one he scored, a little bit more central to the one he scored against England, funny enough, with his left foot. Hits the top of the bar. Colm has no chance with that one, and that turns out to be the winning goal. And for Havertz, I want to see more of that. And I know it's a hard ask to ask him to score goals like that, any player to score goals. I don't expect him to score goals like that every week. But it was a moment where Kai Havertz stepped above the game. He took the game to another level. He individually, he made a difference. Like, he made a firm imprint on the game. And that has been my biggest frustration and criticism of Kai Havertz at Chelsea, is too many games drift him by. There's too many games where I look at Kai Havertz and I think there should be something more. Like, you have the talent, as we saw again tonight throughout it. Little nice flicks, little nice movements, and then a stunning finish. He has the talent to do things like this, and he needs to be this player on a more consistent basis, because we have not seen moments like that consistently. As I say, I know it's not a repeatable goal, but it was a moment where you saw the talent and a player really just taking his opportunity and just turning the game, because it was 1-1. It could have gone in a variety of directions, and it's not like Chelsea from that goal were just completely dominant for the rest of the game. Actually, Salzburg came back into it again, and Chelsea had to do a lot of good defending for the rest of it. But yeah, I looked at the performance and I just felt there were so many moments where players would just make the wrong call, run into danger when they didn't need to, maybe taking an extra touch when they didn't need to. The perfect example in the second half was Christian Pulisic, who I actually think had a pretty decent game. I think he looked very up for it, and his interception to win the ball back led to Kovacic's goal in the first half. So I think he deserves credit for that. But he got his feet tangled up. There was moments like that where it's just, if we had a little bit more clinical nature, which is always a consistent criticism of Chelsea, but if we had more composure in those moments, I think it could have been a much more emphatic win for Chelsea. But I always prefer games like that where Chelsea are creating chances consistently, ones that we can score, high quality chances, as you know on this channel, because then, you give yourself a little bit more margin for error, which, take a drink anytime I say that on the channel, because I say it probably too much. But I think a prime example of it tonight, and it did take 2 wonder strikes to win us the game, but we won it. For Graham Potter, it's massive, it really is. To have this just to get Chelsea through to the last 16, We're there now, as I say, it gives him license in that Zagreb game to rotate the team again. I think it's next week, the final game of the group. And you know, you don't have the pressure on there to win that game. There's not massive scrutiny on it. And hopefully we can see a few players that we haven't. And that is so needed. He needs a game like that in this congested schedule because there's so many games and all of them matter. And it's nice to have at least one kind of dead rubber. And hopefully the result goes for us in the other game, because then it really will be a dead rubber. So that's a real privilege, I think, to have, that a lot of teams maybe don't at this time of the season. Let me know your opinions on the game, the performance. Man of the match, I think, you know, you are looking at players obviously like Havertz. He wins the game. I think that Kovacic, I actually think, had a really good overall performance. He didn't play the entirety of the game, but he looked a lot more like the Kovacic we saw consistently last season, where taking the ball, dribbling, being much more direct in his play. And that's not just, it's obviously because he scored and he has a positive impact on the game, but just, you know, his overall play, I think, was really suited to what Chelsea needed to do tonight to get round Salzburg's press. And we haven't seen that from Kovacic a lot because of his injury problems. I also want to give a shout out to Mark Cucurella, who's obviously had some illness issues recently, and Graham Potter explained that in the pre-match press conference. And I don't think many of us had him in our predicted 11s for this game and haven't been that impressed by him. I thought he had a really good performance. I really do, particularly passing the ball. And that is so important for Chelsea with the way they're trying to build up, especially from those wider centre-backs with Graham Potter. So all round, again, I mean, Chelsea through to the last 16. I'm sure there are many more players that I may need praise that I haven't mentioned in this review. Let me know those in the comments below. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again very soon. All the best.